Hello, I'm Matt Frawley, and this is Mathey Talks. Today we're talking with Juli-anne Jensen, who is the Associate Director for Arts, Nonprofits, and Public Sector here at Career Services. And this Sunday, which is the 22nd, is the Oscars, and Juli-anne Jensen will be hosting an Oscar night at Mathey, and so we want to talk about that, but also about your background and what you do here.
Sure.
Start off and tell us how you got here. Tell us your background. You have so many different previous jobs. I'd love to hear about it.
Sure. I guess the first thing I tell people, especially students when they come in, is I'm not your typical career counselor.
Mm-hmm.
I've come from working in the respective industries, and that's what kind of struck me most about when I saw the job posting, was that it was arts, nonprofit, public sector, because I've worked in all those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And through that process, I got to experience the Career and Life Vision workshop, which was actually really interesting to attend that as part of my application process, because it really gave me a sense of reflection in terms of where I've been with my career, and has helped me in the last several weeks getting to know the students here and the faculty and the staff.
So
Sure.
So there might be some students who don't know about that workshop.
Okay.
So what can you explain what that is and
Sure.
what's involved?
Sure. The Career and Life Vision workshop it's about 3 hours long, which seems really long, but by the end you kind of don't know where the time went.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great workshop put on by Pulin Sangvi, the Executive Director of Career Services, and he basically walks students through their experiences, their interests, and how that fits into where they see themselves going, and how to achieve that balance in their work and life vision. And it's interesting because anybody can take it. In fact, when I went, there were some staff members there, and from different departments, and everyone kind of learned something new about themselves and about how their skills are transferable, whether they're a student athlete or an artist, or but they also happen to be like an engineering major, and how all of those things fit together. So so part of that reflection helped me, like I said, go through my background,
Mm-hmm.
Because I had an interesting path that brought me here. So I start like 20 years ago, started out working in politics, and made my career transition to film, actually through one of my supervisors in politics. I was looking to do something, stay in the industry, but kind of explore a little bit in entertainment, and he was a great mentor and led me to someone at an agency where he worked that happened to have great experience in both industries, and she actually became my mentor over the last 20 years, kind of helping. I guess you could kind of say she's like been my guiding light through it, because she had prior to that had a 30-year career kind of doing the same thing, in and out of both worlds, and managed to make that work. So when I got into film, I was in the...
Can I
Sure.
Just
Sorry.
So when no,
Yeah.
It's just interesting because you start off in politics and you go into film. I mean, was there like, what skills are transferable, or was it pretty easy to see that?
At the time, I was so young and enthusiastic that I think I just went with it. But I think what helped was I was in a program at MIU where I did my undergraduate work, where it was individualized study, so I basically created my own major, and my thesis was the theater of politics.
Okay.
So I had basically built like my undergraduate education. Did I say that right, or am I tongue-tied?
Well, when I watch this, I'll
okay.
get back to you.
Built it around both industries, and so for me it made sense, and the fact that I was working with people who were able to cross both lines, I was like, okay, this is doable. So part of it came from kind of youthful enthusiasm,
Mm-hmm.
and the other part of it came from the fact that I was watching people live it. So, which was a great example.
Okay, so now you're in film.
So now I'm in film.
Okay.
And so I'm seeing basically, okay, I've just come from working with candidates and kind of arranging for events and campaigning, and there's an end goal, and it's election day, and now I'm working on film and television projects where you've got to work with, instead of candidates, you're working with actors and directors and setting up events and screenings and, going towards opening day. So it was like both had an end goal, and both you had to pay attention to the fact that you had fan bases. So just like in politics, film too, you have your fan bases, but how are you going to grow that, and how are you going to reach people? So both pieces were similar, and I was starting to connect these dots as I was in it. And I spent about 10 years in the film industry. I worked at Miramax during the kind of Shakespeare in Love days,
Right.
and then Universal. I was actually down here at Princeton for, A Beautiful Mind was shooting. Worked on that campaign, Erin Brockovich, all the Fast and the Furious, and Meet the Parents, and Josie and the Pussycats, and like all sorts of the Scorpion King. I mean, I could just go on and on listing all the movies, and and about a boy. I mean, it was highbrow, like general audiences. It was everything, which was fascinating to me because I was able to also do campaigns that were specific, that kind of scratched the itch of the serious part of me, in terms of like the outreach to different communities, like the mental health industry for A Beautiful Mind, or environmentalists for Erin Brockovich.
So when you say let's take A Beautiful Mind. You say a campaign. What do you mean? Like what was your task for that movie? Let's say.
Sure. A Beautiful Mind. Started working on it from the very beginning. So basically, once the script came through and was greenlighted, as a publicist, got the script, read through it, collaborated on what kind of coverage we can get for it, and basically how to, because we knew early on that it was going to be an Oscar movie. You could just read a script and you could just tell. So how we were going to do the campaign, how we were going to reach people. Because sometimes when you're doing campaigns like that and you've got such a serious theme in it with mental health and mathematics, sometimes people can get turned off. So it's a balance between the entertainment component and the thematics of it. So we looked at it from far out, and we decided to have very select set visits. We had a great New York Times writer who came and did like the first big piece on the film, and then basically that was through the spring, and then it was edited, and then it was released in December. So all through the fall, we did an Academy campaign. So the Academy campaign is very similar to a political campaign because you've got all the Screen Actors Guild Awards, and you've got the Writers Guild and BAFTA and the Golden Globes. So they're kind of like primaries. So you've got to get out there, and the actors and the director and the writer all have to get out there and like go to these events and speak to their constituents, the voters, and you go through all these screenings and the whole process. And in the meantime, you're also developing press opportunities and doing things that set the film apart as a contender, not just for its great filmmaking, but also its sensitivity to those themes. So we worked a lot with the National Institute for Mental Health and representatives like the late Paul Wellstone and Tipper Gore to have screenings with those communities. And Ron Howard, the director, would come, and Russell Crowe and Jennifer Connelly, who were in the film, and they spoke really eloquently about it. And we got some great, what you could say, like serious coverage that really was important, because the Oscar voters really look at that piece of it. They want, that's like the gravitas of a film. And that year was actually, there were a lot of Oscar controversies, but that with that film, because of the sincerity of the message and the campaign. I think that's why ultimately it won all the awards and that people took such notice and care to it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to
okay,
no, that
sorry.
was great.
Yeah.
No, you're doing great.
Okay.
It's just fascinating, and I just wish we had more time. So you do film for 10 years, and then from there you go where?
So after Universal, I went to Fox Searchlight, where I did lots of fun movies like Sideways and Napoleon Dynamite, and great fun. But I got to a point. My brother is in the Army, and he served in Iraq, and he when he came home, I talked to him a lot about what was going on and everything else, and I made a personal decision to go back into politics because I thought that things weren't going the way they should in Washington. So I started to get involved. So I started out by actually recruiting his commander to run for Congress, and then through that, getting the attention of the leadership of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, who then hired me on to kind of be a campaign doctor, and they sent me all over the country working with different campaigns, kind of diagnosing what the issues were and helping them solve their problems, whether it was communications or fundraising, that sort of thing. And from that, I ended up working on the Obama campaign in 2008, coordinating the congressional campaigns on the ground, and then going into private practice and basically living in both worlds, taking on some work developing documentaries, working on some films, working on some campaigns, more nonprofit work. So it's just kind of, it all, in the last, I guess about 5 or 6 years, it kind of came together and culminated in Princeton.
It was meant to be.
Yeah.
All right.
I hope so.
So you've been here about 8 months?
6 weeks.
6 weeks? No, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. So 6 weeks. So what have you seen? Like, what have you experienced so far with interacting with the students? Like, what opportunities, obstacles, general vibe you get, and interacting?
They're amazing. I mean, every student that comes in is different, and every student is amazingly talented and humble. And sometimes I'll be talking through what the students are doing or what they've done, and they'll just like casually mention like, oh yeah, I'm teaching myself Japanese, or I'm an Olympic champion, or I play a half a dozen instruments, and it's just it's regular to them, but it's really extraordinary, and it's fun to get them to tell their stories, because that will be their best tool in life, I think, in terms of their careers and how they both get their jobs and how they navigate through their careers.
And when they come in, I assume, like, if I was anywhere 18 to 22 years old and I had an interest in the entertainment industry, obviously it's so big, there's the entry points. Is that, are you seeing that kind of, that there's the passion and want to get involved, but just I hate to say ignorance, but they're needy for figuring out the ways to get, to network and whatnot?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's different. You've got some students who come in and, they've known that they have a consulting job since last fall. And then you've got students who come in and they're like, how do I get an internship in entertainment? I'm interested in production. How does that work? And it's the difference. Basically, it's delineating the difference between people who are coming here to recruit and being proactive and getting yourself out there. Because there are certain types of jobs that you really have to put yourself out there for, especially if you're an artist. There's so much self-promotion involved and networking. But across the board with students, I think that it's about giving them the confidence to get out there and follow their passion. because a lot of students have different ideas and different interests, and this is the time to explore those things.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of jobs, internships, I try to encourage them to take some chances.
So can you give like a hypothetical example of what that would mean to take some chances?
Sure. So a freshman, for example.
Right.
A freshman who's like, you know what, I have to get a consulting internship this summer because that's what I want to do in 4 years, and like gung-ho. But at the same time, they're a freshman, and Princeton has so many opportunities for whether it's studying abroad or funding or just different opportunities that will make them more appealing a few years from now,
Right.
because those things will set them apart. Because lots of firms can say, oh, well, you've been doing consulting for the last 4 years, but if you've got, for example, language skills or cultural skills from doing a study abroad program, that sets you apart. It's kind of like your superpower.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the types of things where some students might consider it a risk to do something like that. Other students, that's just what they do. So it's a lot of it is about working with the individual and seeing what they need.
Right.
So.
So I know there's some students who know what they want to do and they kind of figure out their passions, but I know a lot of students, I'd say probably the majority, are still kind of searching. And I know there's the workshops that we talked about at the beginning, but what else can they be doing to figure out what their passions are?
I would definitely say, talk to your friends about it.
Mm-hmm.
Come talk to me about it. I've had students who, I'll notice something on their resume and I'll start talking to them about it, and suddenly they'll realize, for example, I've had students come in and they're athletes and they've got all these different interests, and they'll say, I want to be a data analyst, but I don't want to work in a lab, and I don't want to work for a technical company and just be a drone. And I'll say, well, you've got this great sports experience. There are sports data analysts, or there are opportunities doing oh, you're really into politics, you've been volunteering on campaigns for the last couple years in high school, you could do political data analysis or data modeling, things like that, where you can kind of still fit your interests in with the career skills.
Right.
Because there are and that's the other part about kind of opening up that world. So.
Yeah. Do you I wonder. I'm speaking from just looking at my own children, I said, teenagers now. I think the passions are there; they just don't realize them, or they don't think that they can be leveraged into careers. Is that true?
Yeah.
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 I don't say that's the case for everyone, but sometimes I think they just don't think that they could be. I have to do something else. I have to do something serious, when they don't realize that the passions lead to some really great opportunities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or that serious thing could end up being, they could end up living their passion,
right.
Work through it.
Right.
Or even some technical companies, things like that. Talking to an engineering student who's also really or a chemistry student, for example, who's really interested in food, and making that connection for them and saying you could do food chemistry and food science, and then suddenly it's I can. It's yes, there are all of these opportunities. You can do research and development for different food organizations. You can there are startups. There are so many different options, and then suddenly it's then their mind just blows up.
Right.
And it's so awesome to see that.
Right.
Because then suddenly the world is wide open.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Yeah. All right, so just a few minutes left here. Tell us about this Sunday night. You're going to be doing an Oscar night party. Mm-hmm. I know there's still some pieces, moving pieces, and we're trying to get some things set. But just tell us generally what's going to be happening.
Sure. Well, we're going to have the red carpet, because you can't have the Oscars without the red carpet.
Right.
And we're going to have some food, and I'll be there to talk about the Oscars and the Oscar campaigns, because I've done a lot of work there, and I'm a member of the Oscar host committee. But this year I'm not on the red carpet, I'm at Princeton. So it'll be fun to talk about what happens on the red carpet and backstage and all of that business. But if students have any questions about the industry or things like that, And then hopefully we'll have some swag from the studios, and if I could get some Oscar members to Skype in, hopefully we can get that on board too. So making it happen.
That's right. So that's this Sunday night, the 22nd, in the Mathey Rocky Theater and Classroom. And we're going to start at 8, or are we starting earlier? I
7.
think we said 7. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Red carpet. Gotta have the red carpet.
Right. Okay, so that's 7 o'clock, Mathey Rocky Theater and Classroom with Juli-anne Jensen. So again, I want to encourage you to come talk with Juli-anne Jensen. Really come down to career services, really doing some great stuff, and it's just really neat to have folks like yourself and to see what's going on here. So thanks so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to talk with us today.
Oh, happy to. Anytime.
Cool.
Thank you.